We have a major Justin Brazeau trade update as recent reports from Emily Kaplan and David Pastrnak have revealed that a trade is imminent due to some recent contract negotiations. We're going to be talking about all of this here in this video and what a trade could look like for a guy named Justin Brazeau here in this video. Before we get into it, though, we're on the road to 6K, and we know that just over 70% of you guys watching right now are not subscribed to the channel. If you're looking for a spot for all of your Boston Bruins news, you're in that right spot, and we have a lot to cover with the trade deadline coming up, so be sure to hit that sub button. But looking at our first update here from David Pastrnak a couple of days ago, starting off with this, Bruins pending unrestricted free agents Trent Frederic and Justin Brazeau are drawing trade interest from multiple teams with the deadline rapidly approaching. Now, this was one of the first reports that we had heard about Justin Brazeau, and I've been a big advocate for him to be re-signed by this team, knowing that, he's just a very good player, first of all, but really hasn't been able to show that. And it is getting a bit late for his, tenure, I guess we could say, with the Boston Bruins, being 27 years old, kind of in the contract situation he is, and looking at where he would fit into a lineup. Things just aren't working out specifically for him and the Boston Bruins. But with another recent update from Emily Kaplan here, per Mark Allred on Twitter, Emily Kaplan said the Boston Bruins and pending UFA Justin Brazeau are far apart on their contract talks, and now we're getting a pretty good idea as to why the Bruins are marking him as a top trade candidate. Now, as you've seen there from David Pastrnak a minute ago as well, many teams are going to be looking at Justin Brazeau for a few different reasons. He is a very, very big forward, a bottom six forward, can really play well when paired with the right players, and that is something that we have not been able to see this year at all, is him on a line that really just makes sense. He's been kind of thrown around all the places, and as of late, been scratched to quite a few games, and really just hasn't been able to get any momentum going in the positive direction with this Boston Bruins team. But looking at how he will impact any other team, a big guy who can, if he uses physicality, be a force to be reckoned with in the NHL, and also one of the best net front players in the NHL at the moment. Justin Brazeau features a lot of highlights that many teams will find useful, and being listed as one of the 22nd, I believe it was 22nd by TSN in their trade board. A lot of teams are going to be moving him up quite a bit on that list. Now with that report from Emily Kaplan coming out about the negotiations not being close at all between these teams, and Justin Brazeau will command a pretty decent value. It won't be anything crazy due to, the season especially, and kind of the lack of offensive ability we've seen at the NHL level. But when we go back in his recent, couple years, with not just the Boston Bruins, but going back to Providence, going back to the North Bay, he had 113 points, 61 goals, 52 assists in 68 games as the captain of the North Bay Battalion in 2018 and 2019. Then going on with the Newfoundland Growlers, my home team, to kind of keep that up when they were still a franchise. And 55 points in 57 games, he was very, very good to watch and very fun to watch. He was a very talented player at that time, and I still see that player in him, but obviously the NHL is much, much, much higher of a level than the ECHL, and we saw that translate. But even when you go back to his years with Providence, he was putting up some very respectable points. 37 points in 49 games and 45 points in 67 games last going off. And then, of course, last year making his debut with the Boston Bruins. When you're looking at his NHL career, he hasn't even had a full season yet. And the fact that he already has the value he does, the Bruins looking at trading him, are certainly, that kind of that what-if unknown factor that a lot of teams see in Justin Brazeau. As I mentioned, paired with the right unit, and being, finding his role, I guess, is a good way of putting it. The Bruins really hadn't given him anything last year. He was going very, very hot to start off with, but then we saw the injury that he sustained last season and came back in the playoffs. Really just didn't get back going since that, and I would even argue continuing that into this season. But 20 points in 54 games has not been horrible. He's stepped up when the Bruins have needed him, but it really just hasn't been good enough for the Bruins this year, which is a big reason as to why he has been labeled in that trade market. But when we go back to the TSN big board, as you saw there, for the trade bait, he is ranked at number 22nd. And with a $775,000 contract, he is making just about a league minimum, which any team can trade for. There's many, many teams that are very, very close to that cap limit, and Justin Brazeau is the type of player that those teams would be looking for. Someone who has $775K, obviously could be retained if needed, which I highly doubt due to, the sheer minute amount of money he is making in NHL terms. but a lot of teams are going to be looking at him as that target. Now, looking at what we've been kind of seeing in teams, there hasn't been any specific team mentioned as of just yet, but all we're hearing is quite a few, which is, kind of an open amount of teams, which, we never really will know, but in the sense of what we've been seeing, it's around, 5 to 6 plus. And a lot of that due to, as I've mentioned, his capabilities on the ice, what he's shown, what he hasn't shown, and what will be shown in future years, and also his next coming contract. And that's a big thing to mention as well with Justin Brazeau, is that he won't be making a whole lot of money. He's another guy that could be around that, below 2 million mark. I would say probably 1.5, 1.25 for a couple years, maybe 2 or 3. And even if you go further than that, you could up that contract. But Brazeau is someone who is going to be playing for a contract that he certainly will be valued more than. And it's just kind of that play style where you see some of these big guys, some of these players that are just very, very good, have a lot of potential, can get in front of that, get in the dirty areas that are very undervalued but are so useful to teams. But since they don't put up an insane amount of points or whatnot, their value is just not as high as it would be if they were that type of player. So Brazeau has a lot of value. Now, when we're looking at a trade for the Boston Bruins, what they would get, it would likely be picks. And kind of a good example as to what we're seeing right now is Gustav Nyquist getting sent to Minnesota, 50% retained, and a second-round pick going back. I really do see a deal like that. I really don't think that it would be any way that you could trade Justin Brazeau for a player that would kind of make up that value. A pick, I think, would be the best option at this point, and it really does seem, with what we're looking at from the Boston Bruins, that they're going to be going for a lot of these extra picks to be able to add into the draft to kind of up that depth that they have going into the next couple seasons. And we know we've seen some young guys get called up as of late, Merkulov, Veal, and a lot of those other players get brought up to the NHL. But now when we're looking at the AHL, there's still a few players that can be called up, but you can't really bring up the entire team with who the Bruins have in the NHL right now. So it does seem like the Bruins have something to go. But an update from KPD as well, Kevin Paul DuPont, about today's game, as Brazeau was a scratch once again today. So when you look at him as a player that is going to be traded or in the rumor mill for trades, you want to show him off in the last few games. Unless the Bruins think that he could only get worse and the value could only get lower, it is something very interesting to look at as a player who is going to be traded but not kind of showing off for these teams as we are 6 days away from the NHL trade deadline. So I'm very curious as to what the Bruins are planning on doing with him. Maybe, he's going to be traded within the weekend if, he's sitting tonight, no risk of injury. And, it's very interesting to see what the plan is for this Bruins team with this trade due to the uncertainty of where he is right now. But let me know what you think about this potential trade for Justin Brazeau. What do you want to see in return? I think there's a few options that we can get. Picks, maybe a player swap. That's something I feel like is a bit unlikely due to the uncertainty of value for Justin Brazeau. But the picks are something that I'm kind of liking in the area we are right now. So let me know what you think. But that's all I got in this video. If you did enjoy, give it a like, hit the sub button as well. But I'm signing out. Thank you for watching. Hope you have a great day. See you later.